Morning guys, Mon here. Today we are taking a very deep look at my Tornado character, or well, Stormbolt beer character more precisely. It has evolved to somewhat of a Tornado character by now. But before we go into all the specifics, I want to showcase two things this character is especially good at, which is bossing and arena clear for favor. So for that we quickly take down an Aberroth and then go into an arena at 1k corruption, which is where I currently am farming with the build, which is the highest corruption I have reached this season. Could go higher, but the diminishing return on scaling doesn't really make it useful. For disclaimer, this is the first time I do Aberroth with the not stationary tornadoes because I'm testing around different setups. However, stationary tornadoes make bosses a lot more enjoyable. But yeah, we do it without here because I didn't want to respec. As you can see, the damage is really good. Moved out a little too early there, but doesn't matter. We're extremely tanky here, we can take most of the hits. Don't really need to dodge all that much. We do want to get rid of the poison fields here. However, even if you do get hit by poison or anything, anytime you use Warcry, or Warcry is auto-used, which is all the time, you are cleansing all ailments. So ailments don't really annoy you all too much. Here we get a little bad damage due to Tornado being very annoying when it comes to targeting. Just quickly tank that with Warcry. Though the problem with not stationary tornadoes here is that when the tornadoes travel too close to the orb in the middle, as you can see, they are focusing it at times, which might lead to a lot of lost DPS, which is very annoying. So yeah, for bosses I would recommend to go for... Oh, we actually skipped the last phase. What the fuck? Okay, yeah, as you can see, the damage is very good. And this is the extremely tanky variant. You can go for about 10 times the damage with a more damage focused variant, but would not really have a lot of health. We'll likely focus on that next season maybe, but yeah. For now we want to focus on the very tanky variant. Let's quickly check if we've seen something interesting here. No amulet actually, which is quite sad. And no body armor as well. What a shame. But yeah, that's was like a normal Aberroth kill. Actually, quite a bit faster than usually. Usually I do have to dodge in the last phase, but yeah. Let's quickly take a look at arenas here. As you can see, we are running Corruption 1000, and the best arena you can run is Abyss Arena. However, this one has critical strike avoidance, which is very annoying. But we run it anyways just to showcase the arena clear here. So we currently have 5k favor. And this clear will suck a little due to the crit avoidance. So that is why our rage is jumping around a bit, and I don't have my arena build on, which gives more cooldown reduction, which makes this even better. Because you can sustain the tornadoes with cooldown reduction build, but I do not have it in my main setup right now. But I will go over all these little details in a moment. So usually on the right gear, this clear would be about 20 to 30% faster, I'd say. And then just leave before the arena is concluding. Not a great clear, but you could see the basics of it. 6.6k, not all that much. We can gain like up to 3 to 4k favor per arena on good arena spawns. But yeah, that's pretty much how the build plays. Actually, we can do some run around here. Oh, that's actually an arena too. I didn't want another arena. We just quickly go through some other area here as well, just to showcase how it goes. This character cannot like tank everything at 1k corruption, which most builds can't. Nothing interesting here. And at lower corruption you can actually clear just by running through the enemies, and the storms will take care of them, but here you can see the damage is not quite enough to clear enemies here. We have to put some tornadoes in every now and then if we want to actually take down the enemies. But for 1000 corruption this still is very, very good, in my opinion at least, especially for a druid. Want to dodge a bit around. The setup I'm playing right now is much better at bossing than at clearing, because the ward generation does not work well in the beer form in the current setup, so yeah, it's much better when we are stationary and casting tornadoes all the time. But let's take a look at what the character does overall. So the idea of the character is to put down tornadoes or run around in the beer form to strike enemies with lightning. The lightnings come from Gathering Storm and are scaled by the skill tree we will take a look at in a moment. Then we have Maelstrom stacks with scale the crit chance of our lightning bolts. We have Warcry to generate Maelstrom, make us invulnerable with a movement, and yeah, that's pretty much what the character plays. We generate Rage by hitting enemies, and when we run out of mana due to casting tornadoes, we jump into the beer form and are at full rage, which will be topped off all the time due to critting enemies. So let's take a look at the basics of the character. After that we will take a look at the skill tree, and then we take a look at the gear, because for the gear there is a whole fucking lot of options. So let's take a look at the bread and butter of the build, the Stormbolts. Gathering Storm here is just for the passive for the Stormbolt. We get shock chance, we get increased damage, or more damage actually, for the Stormbolts, and we gain this one is useless because we don't expend storm stacks, but we gain the rendering vortex, which is the most important node on this tree, together with excited bolts. Rendering vortex gives 1% base crit per stack of Maelstrom, and we do usually sit at around 20 stacks of Maelstrom while clearing. And like 15, like usually 15 plus Maelstrom stacks at any given time, due to hitting enemies, which generates Maelstrom as well. Which means we are at 20% to 25+% base crit, which means we do only need 400 to 500% increased critical strike chance to cap our crit, which is extremely easy, but we'll get to that in a moment. So the other big node is excited bolts, which makes the Stormbolts cost current mana, which is okay because we generate a lot of rage and can like work against it and not care about it, and it gives more damage per 10 current mana, which is 3%. So when we have 100 current mana, we gain 30% more damage. 600 mana gives 200% more. Is that correct? No, wait. 100 mana, 30, 200. We gain, for 600, we gain 180% more damage, which is a lot and very much achievable, especially when you go for some more attunement. However, this variant is strength stacking, and I will go through why in a second, which I'm saying a lot here right now, but let's focus on what we're doing right now. Later on, when you have more points, you can go for Clouds on the Horizon for more area, just to like put the tornadoes wherever, and it clears like 2 or 3 screens away. Also, Thundering Strikes give lightning penetration for the bolts, and aside from these nodes, you can't really put them usefully anywhere. I have some here which doesn't do anything, and yeah, just to have like 22 levels on Gathering Storm is the maximum number of points you can use, because all other nodes don't do anything. Let's take a look at Tornado, which is our main single target. For Tornado, we just want a lot of cast speed, and the most important thing, Tornado casts Stormbolts every 2 seconds, and Tornado casts Stormbolts more frequently, which goes down to like 0.6 or something. I didn't do the math here, just estimating. Overcast Skies makes the Stormbolts like target further away. This works together with Clouds on the Horizon and just gives an enormous range. Very, very good for clearing and for single target if you are not using stationary tornadoes. Stationary tornadoes are very, very good if you just want to put the tornadoes on the enemy, have one big tornado that is like not obstructing the entire screen, because as you have seen in the Aberroth fight, this can be very annoying. Is better for arena clear, however. Then you have Lasting Storms, which makes the tornadoes last longer. It is 60% more damage, and very important to keep your streak of tornadoes up while in the beer form. Then you have Hurricane, double cast, again very, very strong. Removes the pull strength, which you would get for stationary tornadoes. You don't really have pull strength if you don't use stationary tornadoes. This is another 100% more damage because you cast it twice, like double the amount of bolts. Apart from that, that's pretty much it. You don't really have a lot of options. The real options you do have here is you either want a lot of range or you want stationary tornadoes. You don't really need both. One of them is sufficient because here you would target them more, here you have more range. That's pretty much it for the tornadoes. Let's take a look at the Maelstrom. Maelstrom is here just for buffing. This gives haste, it gives frenzy, it gives a lot of Maelstrom stacks when hitting enemies. Because we have so many hits, you could put more points into this, but it's not really necessary. Then we get some more Stormbolt hits while being above 6 stacks. And this one hits multiple enemies, so it helps it clear quite a bit when not using tornadoes. But this only hits once per second, so it's not great DPS overall. An alternative to Growing Storms is Beneath the Waves with Lagoons, like Lagoon Slumber stacks. This would mean that you don't generate them passively, but you can click Maelstrom sometimes just to get 4 stacks at once, which works very well. But I have made like the experience that Growing Storm is enough to keep enough Storm stacks or Maelstrom stacks to stay crit capped, so I didn't really want to press another button. Warcry is what caps our crit together with the Maelstrom, because when we use Warcry, we gain crit chance for 4 seconds, and we can gain crit chance here for 4 seconds, which means we gain 200% crit chance, which translates to about 40 to 50% crit chance, depending on the amount of storm stacks. Also, we gain Ferocity, which triggers Warcry again, which makes us invulnerable, gives Maelstrom stacks, and just is very, very good. While leveling, you want to get to Maelstrom stacks fairly quickly just to like get speed going. That's pretty much it for Warcry. Not very special, just a lot of crit here. It also, what is very interesting, it cleanses negative elements and gives invulnerability for 1 second and triggers off of crits. So we have a lot of invulnerable windows, we have a lot of cleanse, some heals. You could put more points into this, but it's not really necessary due to leech. And you want the reduce cooldown node to 5 seconds, so you can use it all the time. Then we have the Werebear form, which is where all the damage from the build comes from. So first of all, we gain some crit as well. Then we get Invigoration, which is range gain on kill or on rare or boss enemy hit, which sustains our rage pretty much entirely, together with a passive we will take a look in a moment. Then we have Ursine Heart. Depending on your endurance, you can put points here to get your endurance cap up and like get to 60% endurance while in beer form. Relentless Thunder is like the biggest damage increase here, together with Wizened Claws, because when transforming into Werebear form, you gain 40% more lightning damage for 6 seconds. Very, very strong buff, which makes the tornadoes hit so hard. Also, Wizened Claws gives additional spell damage per strength, and this is where the strength stacking variant of the build shines. Because when we take a look at Stormbolts, the attunement scaling is only flat damage. There is no increased damage from attunement, which most other skills do have, which means that we either gain 1 point of spell damage per attunement or 1 point of spell damage per strength, which means it is irrelevant which we scale, so we can just take spell damage from strength for armor. Attunement would give the the advantage of also scaling mana, which would give like 100 or maybe 200, maybe a little more mana on very high-end versions, which means that attunement scaling is better damage-wise, strictly better damage-wise, but the strength version is a lot better defense-wise. Another factor for the attunement version would be Avatar of Thunder, which gives lightning penetration per 5 attunement, so at 100 attunement you would have 40% lightning penetration, which is a lot. But we are focusing on strength, so we want to be very tanky. Then we have the, take a look, Crackling Assault node, which says that while in Rampage we strike enemies with lightning all the time. So this is pretty much the clear you are using most of the time, while not running 1000 corruption. And then we have Unending Storms, which takes away the cooldown of Rampage, so we can use Rampage all the time. And here another technique that is very good is that due to Rampage not having cooldown, you can use other spells or dodge to redirect Rampage. So I can Warcry and I just keep Rampage like pressed. I don't press anything but the spells I want to use, and we can redirect the movement direction, which is like very enjoyable when clearing. Aside from that, that's pretty much the most important stuff of the Werebear tree. I do have some more levels, so I did put them in Dauntless. You don't really have to do that, it's just some more movement speed. You can also put more points in Vigoration if you need better regeneration. And Intimidating Cry is an option theoretically, but I would advise against it, because then Ferocity does not work, because you have to directly use Warcry for it to be triggered after, so you cannot trigger Warcry and then trigger Warcry again. That's it for the skills, so let's take a look at the passives. For the passives, you just want to go for strength pretty much. Strength, health, health regeneration, and some armor is where the power lies in. We gain some penetration here, we gain endurance here, we gain strength and attunement here, lots of damage scaling, we get crit here and leech on crit, which is very important, so you want 3 points in here. 8 points in here for armor per strength to make the armor scaling better in human form. Then you want the primal shifter for the tiger spirit to get even more crit multi and crit chance in the werebear form. And you want Rageborn for the Rage on Crit, which is a very strong buff. Also, Hide Skin just gives a lot of endurance, very strong. If you do have enough Rage on Crit or Rage on Hit due to the beer form, and do feel like you don't need the crit, you could take these points away and put them into Harmless Wisdom for attunement and crit avoidance, which is a very good option as well. Might deal more damage if you are crit capped anyways. Then we take a look at Shaman. This is just attunement and penetration. You need 5 points for tornadoes, so just take those. And for Beastmaster, we want strength, reduce damage taken from nearby enemies, take boar form because there's no other good nodes, health, and natural fortitude, which gives strength, health regeneration, and health regeneration per strength. So from our 100 strength, we gain 200% health regeneration, which currently puts me at 466 health regeneration, which is a fuck ton, and very important with the setup of gear I am running. So this is pretty much the tree, and there really is not much to discuss about this. This is very set in stone, and the points are very scarce. I could like put in 40 points more and still would have points left. So yeah, very strong tree, and probably the only druid tree I actually do like, because most of the time I'm in the druid tree and I'm like, what the fuck am I scaling? This is also terrible. But for this build, this is very strong. So this is pretty much the scaling of skills and passives. So let's take a look at blessings quickly, because we are through here fairly quick. Yeah, you gain crit multi, you could go with health or dodge rating in a different setup, which I will explain in a moment. Here you want all resistance, this is pretty much unnegotiable. There isn't a lot of good options, and all resistance just is good pretty much always. Here you want armor. The only other option that is very strong as well is armor while channeling. If you feel like you don't need the armor in your human form, you would take this and have like 4 or 5k armor more in the bear form, which is pretty good. Because the rampage does count as channeling, so whenever you're channeling you have more armor. But whenever you are channeling you don't really tend to get hit, so I prefer the flat armor variant here. For the increased armor, this is pretty much set in stone. It's very, very strong. However, you could theoretically go for endurance threshold. We check. Yeah, it's pretty much the only other option would be endurance threshold here if you feel like you do have enough armor. And due to 5% armor scaling and other armor scaling, we do have like 800, 900% armor maybe. I'd actually check that, but doesn't matter too much. You get a lot of armor, and here you gain more. So more armor is more better, but you could take endurance threshold theoretically. The only thing where you do really have a lot of options, here you take experience obviously, is the Lagoon variant, but health regeneration in my opinion is the best here. You could go for mana for more sustain and damage. You could go for, can you not please? 5. You could go for shred lightning resistance also, which is very strong. We would gain like 20% lightning shred, which is 20% more damage, pretty much more or less. There's other factors, but more or less 20% damage. However, I felt like health regeneration is the best in my setup because I am running a hybrid damage tanky variant, which is very, very nice to have a lot of health regeneration, because if I drop this, I would go down to like 200 health rec, which is a lot, maybe even less. So yeah, health rec from Lagoon, very, very good, but has the negative part of being 2 mods, which roll separately. So you can be lucky and get like 200% health rec and still have, well, flat health. So this is a very annoying blessing to farm a good version of. But let's take a look at the gear I am currently using, and then we take a look at gear that is possible to be used. So the big combination of items that makes this version of the build is the Twisted Heart of Luqas and the Wall of Nothing. Wall of Nothing gives endurance threshold added as a ward decay threshold, which in the beer form is a lot. Like we have 1.6k endurance threshold here, and with some different setups, other blessing, you could get up to 2k or even 3k with a setup. I'm spoiling too much of setups. I won't look into the future, but I just have to like tell them. Quite annoying actually. But you can get a lot of endurance threshold, which means we get a lot of ward thresholds, and with the Twisted Heart of Luqas, we are just generating a lot of ward, where the health regeneration just ticks against. So the faster the health regeneration keeps us up, the more ward we are generating. And with some changes on the idols, because you could get this health regeneration on all of these 4 idols up to like 250% or something, and some more flat to get like 1.2, 1.3k health regeneration, which would be an insane defense variant, but would have a little less damage. And you can in the end decide if you want like the really tanky variant or the hybrid or whatever. But there is a lot of options for the blessing, for the idols as well. Another idol setup would be to go for just a lot of health idols and go for more endurance and health, but I'm jumping around here too much. So Wall of Nothing gives ward decay thresholds, endurance threshold, and endurance threshold added as a ward decay threshold, and in addition ward per second, which is extremely good. The legendary potential you want on here is the tornado spells, because tornado just has a lot of very, very strong nodes. Another option would be tier 7 strength, which would be 24 strength, which is just a lot of strength. And yeah, however, this can take quite a while to get, as you can see here. Like, I have made a lot of these, and a lot of these are not that great. And we have one strength version here, and you can see that while it gives a little bit more armor, the damage likely is lower due to this tornado, because tornado also has a tier 7 spell damage built in them, so this hybrid level of things and spell damage are just extremely good. Putting the points back in here. Am I missing +1? And the Heart of Icarus just is extremely good. So, like, up to 20% health in the implicit. Then we have up to 16 strength, up to 16 cast speed. We have 1 to all elemental spells, and we gain current health reward whenever we cast Tornado, which is just so much what we generate. Like, these two items, when you have them with 2 LP, are extremely good. However, same problem as with the wall, Hearts of Icarus take a long time to get a good version of, because the roll ranges are atrocious, and you can have a lot of unluck with, like, the slamming. As you can see, tier 5 strength, tier 5 frailty, not exactly what I was looking for, because you can get frailty from the Warcry, so this essentially is pretty much just 7 strength in addition. But I just cannot hit a good one by the, I don't know, I just cannot. I have tried so many, and it's just very difficult to hit. I had many with 2 LP, and they just don't hit at all. Take a look. I actually don't have it here anymore, but yeah, quite a lot didn't hit. It's whatever. Then for the belt, Legacy of the Quiet Forest just is a very good build. 2, 3 LP, very good. 3 LP, fairly farmable. It has a pretty good drop rate, just very strong build. However, I would want cooldown recovery instead of health here, would be quite a bit better. However, yeah, it's just better with cooldown recovery due to the tornado uptime in the beer form. Then Nihilus, very good amulet. However, you do need a pretty good roll with a good Unique Slam to make it better than some rares, because Armor Shred is very difficult to come by on this build, and you only have it on the amulet or the gloves on most setups. So if you don't have it on the gloves, you need it on the amulet. But Nihil is very good. +2 all skills, a lot of value, all resistance very good, more armor extremely good, and that's pretty much it. But +2 all skills alone is like worth so much that you don't really want to drop this in the end game. Then helmet, you just want an Ancestral Crown, or I'm using one at least, with strength, weapon form, armor, attunement. There's some other options for the helmet, but generally this base just is extremely good. The implicits have so much value that there's not much of a reason not to use this. For the staff, you have quite some options. You want lightning penetration in the suffix, because it is the only good suffix. You want mana, cast speed, elemental damage, spell damage, lightning damage, the other mana mod, crit multiplier, all very strong mods. You can choose whatever you like. There's some good bases here. Mana is good, +1 elemental skills is good. There is the base that has way more base damage but increases mana cost, which can be used. The Gate Staff, but can be difficult to work around with the mana. But definitely a possible option here. I personally do like cast speed a lot, because it allows for more armor shred stacks and just faster casting, getting more ward out of cast speed and stuff like that, so cast speed, very strong mod. For the rings, I just use Attunement Strength, Endurance Threshold, Attunement Health, Endurance Threshold here. These rings are very terrible, but I was farming for red rings for a long time, so I didn't want to put too much, like, I didn't want to put too much favor into Exalted rings when farming red rings. However, my red rings turned out so bad that I did just quit the character after farming them, pretty much. And Path of Exile is coming, so it's not too bad. I did farm 2, both were terrible, so here we are. For the gloves, you want the Eternal Gauntlets, or a very strong pair of Exiled Mage Gauntlets with the same mod as an Sealed mod, tier 6, tier 7, both can work. But you don't really want to go below that, because the armor mitigation as the damage over time is just extremely important. For the boots, you want strength, movement speed, cooldown reduction, and other mods. But these three are pretty much mandatory and very, very good. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the gear. I have talked about the blessings. You just want health and spell damage. The small ones, armor, health, whatever. Don't really care too much about those. So let's take a look at options. Early game, especially because I was creating this build because you can run it out of like completely rare items. You don't need a single unique item for it. So all you want is just mana stacking, cast speed stacking, strength stacking, and that's pretty much it. One extremely cool option, which was the reason why I did create this build, is the Ocanius Sphere, which carries pretty much the entire early game. Due to the tree I am running, we only get 13 attunement from the tree if we don't put more points in here and stuff like that. So you usually do have 13 points of attunement and not 1 point more, because you do not want points of attunement on your gear early on. Later on you can do, but as long as you are running the Ocanius Sphere, you want no attunement on gear, and then just use one gear piece with do I have it? Intelligence. You need one tier 6 intelligence mod for intelligence and attunement to be equal, which means you gain 300% lightning damage from the Ocanius Sphere, which just is extremely strong. It's 2 tier 7 mods worth of damage, and the Ocanius drops with 3 LP fairly regularly. So 2 LP, very easy to get, 3 LP, very farmable, and this one just carries your entire early game. Extremely good item, which pretty much justifies the strength stacking build in the early game. Extremely good. For the weapons, you can use staff as said. You can also use a wand. You can use offhand catalyst. Just go for pretty much the same mods I talked earlier. For the gloves, here you can see one version of gloves with the sealed mod. With the experimental effect, sadly forging potential completely fucked me over, and it didn't let me plus mana, didn't let me plus strength up to tier 5, so very sad here. For the helmet, you just want rear bear, form, health regeneration, some resistances early on. Amulet, armor shred, damage, that's pretty much resistances, health regeneration, all good options. Body armor, mana is very good, crit multiplier while transformed is good, health is pretty good early on as well, because while you're not running Wall of Nothing and Twisted Heart, you are running a pure health based version, which can up to like 4.5k health even if you push health a lot. But later on I did like the hybrid version better. But the pure health version is tankier while clearing, that is very important to say. The ward version is much better in boss fights. Like 2 options for body armors I've seen is the Commodus Cage and the Static Shell, both pretty decent option. You're shocking anyway, so more armor and more lightning damage against shocked enemies is pretty good, but I wouldn't use this below 2 legendary potential. Commodus Cage can be used with 1 legendary potential if you hit like tier 7 strength or something, but overall it's a very good base from the start. Also the beer, actually, why doesn't this work? Look at the white fur. This. I want my fur. Impossible. Okay, whatever. It is a pretty decent option early game. So yeah, that's pretty much your early game options. As said, on the belt you do 1 cooldown recovery, which would be better. And the Praetorian belt is the best belt base with the 200 up to 250 armor in the implicits. But let's take a look at actual endgame alternatives, which for one would be the dodge rating alternative. You can see when we go dodge rating and put on these. Actually, I want to change the blessing for this as well. You would want 2 tier 7 dodge rating mods, or 1 tier 7, 1 tier 6, and the blessing, so you get up to about 400 to 500 flat dodge rating. And then use Foot of the Mountain with cooldown recovery, strength, and movement speed. Not all that easy to get, but definitely doable. Can we quickly quickly take a look in the arena here. Just jumping over there. Because Foot of the Mountain is a very interesting item that has pretty good base stats with all attributes, endurance, and the very interesting stat of converting dodge rating to endurance threshold, which would allow us to have like a way bigger endurance threshold than usual, because now we have like 1.3k endurance threshold. We do have 300 dodge rating here, so you would want more, but it is enough to showcase the idea. And now we get up to 2.3 or more endurance threshold just from the Maelstrom stacks, because the Maelstrom stacks in this setup do give 9% dodge rating per stack. So with 20 plus stacks you would gain like 300% dodge rating. Is that correct? No, 200% dodge rating, 300. Quite a few 100% of dodge rating. And you could go for even more Maelstrom stacks. So 30 Maelstrom stacks is somewhat feasible if you push for it. And then you can, as I said, gain a lot of dodge rating, a lot of endurance threshold, which means that you can generate a lot more ward with the Heart of Okairos. And another very interesting option here is if you go the dodge rating and high health regeneration route, that you can go for, quickly put it here, I sadly couldn't farm it because it just didn't drop in like 20 runs, the Vessel of Strife, which gives up to 60% of health regen to ward, and when you have like 1.2k health regen, you would gain like 900 ward regen, which is just extremely strong. So instead of the Heart of Icarus, which would drop some cast speed, strength, elemental skills, so it is a hard drop. And this one gives some mana, ward retention, mana, and some irrelevant stats. Also, it is extremely difficult to get at 2 LP. But if you get one with 2 LP and put strength on something else on it, it is an extremely good item. Always drops with 1 LP, so you can always try to put just tier 7 strength on it. But yeah, this one, very interesting option, very strong option if you gain all the health regeneration you need for it. Where have I been? Okay. So this is the dodge rating variant I wanted to showcase. Very interesting option. Haven't played with it because I didn't test it. It was something that came up with very late and I didn't have the relic to test around with it. However, other endgame options are the Decayed Skull, extremely strong option if you get a good slam on it. Here I do only have tier 6 strength and tier 5 will form sadly, but pretty decent option here, but needs a good roll on more armor and armor mitigation, also applies to damage over time. This helmet is the only helmet slot where you get the armor mitigation from, but if you have this helmet and these gloves together with the Exile mod, you can get like up to 70% of armor applies to damage over time, which makes you more or less immune to armor to damage over time when you play the health regeneration variant, which is extremely cool. So you could get a lot stronger or a lot more defensive here even. Ring options are the red rings, obviously, if you have very good ones, but you would need like at least some like tier 5, tier 6 attribute, either attunement or strength. If you get one with LP, tier 7 strength would be the go-to, obviously, but very difficult to get. And honestly, I cannot like recommend red rings if you do not have a good mod on it. Like, they are cool with the all resistance and stuff, but need something decent from the legendary potential to be usable, honestly, because other rings just do the same in better, more or less. And if you don't have an attribute on this, it can be very difficult to get like up to your thresholds. Then let's take a look at Joras. Joras is an extremely interesting option because this one would be used for the one-shot version. where you just put a lot of attunement on this or strength. However, this one is more interesting in the attunement stacking variant. You could put 16 strength on this, and then when you go into wearable form and just use your rampage, you would get like 48 strength per ring, which is like, it's so much damage. It's just so much damage. But yeah, very interesting option, but more interesting in the attunement stacking variant. However, one of the most interesting options is the branch of Hollows, which needs 3 LP to be competitive, so it sadly is not really an option, but if you have one with 3 LP for some reason, very good stuff with 3 LP. The really interesting option is the Mad Alchemist Ladle, which is fairly easy to farm with 3 LP, in combination with a 4 LP Rainbow Edge, which is farmable as well. Fairly easy drop rate, like you need about 100 Rainbow Edges or something drop, or maybe 200, but to have 4 LP, and then you need a decent crit multi, and then you put one, like 2 of the prefixes I talked about, you put Lightning Penetration and you put Armor Shred on it, because a sword can roll Armor Shred, which wands and staves cannot. You can get Armor Shred on your weapon, and also it gives chance to shock, ignite, and chill. And the Alchemist Ladle gives slow, frailty, where you get frailty from, which is very good, Armor Shred as well, electrify, and poison, which is 8 negative elements, which means just with these 2 weapons we gain the full benefit on Alchemist Ladle, which is 48% more damage. This is extremely good. 48% more damage on a ladle with all these bonuses, with frailty, with armor shred all built in, more slots open on other weapons. You can get mana, you can get flat damage. So many options, extremely potent setup. However, you need a 3 LP ladle and a 4 LP Rainbow Edge for it to be really worth it. 3 LP Rainbow Edge could do it if the crit multi is very well rolled and like the ladle has a very good armor shred roll on it, but I would not want to use it without the armor shred on the like Rainbow Edge as well. So we get like about 100% armor shred, maybe 140 to get like 100 plus stacks on armor shred. But I think this pretty much concludes everything. Oh, Polaris also possible weapon to use here. Spell damage per strength, all attributes. That's very good. Third sword option, which was interesting because when you are farming the Rainbow Edge, you can get a Polaris with 4 LP as well. Both have a decent drop rate. You are fairly likely to get the Polaris even earlier. Our Transcriber's Edge with 3 LP. 4 LP not gonna happen. 3 LP even more likely than the Polaris. And this one has spell damage on it, and it has up to 24 elemental penetration on it, so very strong buff as well. Could be used on 3 LP instead of the Polaris or the Rainbow Edge here. But that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about, I think. If I missed anything or you have any further questions after 45 minutes, free to ask. Like, I have talked about a lot of stuff here and I might have missed something still, like the Leah Signed actually being a pretty decent ring if you have one of 3 LP, because you can have 3 prefixes on the ring pretty much. But it isn't really better than a good sealed exalted ring. Whatever, just if you have any questions, drop them down, feel free to ask, and thanks for watching.